Story 1. The Screaming in the Pines. This occurrence was in Black Hills National Forest, South Dakota. In late October 2014, Eli, a 32-year-old photographer and experienced backpacker, set off for a solo trip in the Black Hills. He was chasing the last colors of fall and planned to spend 3 days deep in the forest, away from trails and campsites. On the second night, after setting up his tent near a secluded ridge, he sat by the fire, editing photos until the cold forced him inside. Around 1:30 a.m., he woke up suddenly to a long, agonized scream cutting through the silence. It sounded like a woman in pain, but it echoed strangely, bouncing off the trees like it was both near and far. He grabbed his flashlight and shouted into the woods, "Are you okay?" "Hello?" The scream stopped. Then, 30 seconds later, it started again, this time behind him. He spun around, but the beam of his flashlight caught only empty trees. Every time he moved toward the sound, it would shift position. It was always just out of reach. By 4 a.m., exhausted and rattled, he gave up and returned to his tent. What he saw froze his blood. The tent was slashed open, 3 long tears through the fabric, and his sleeping bag was ripped. His backpack was overturned, but nothing was taken, just disturbed. He scanned the area and found several muddy boot prints around the site, larger than his own, and barefoot ones too, oddly shaped as if someone had deformed toes or was limping. When he reached the ranger station the next day, pale and shaken, the ranger simply nodded. "You were up by Widow's Bluff, right?" "Yeah, we've heard the screams before. Locals won't camp there anymore. Most say it's just the wind," he said, avoiding eye contact. "But the boot prints, that's new." Story 2. The Man with No Fire. This occurrence was in National Forest, North Carolina. In 2009, 5 college friends, Jake, Lenny, April, Marcus, and Danielle, took a weekend camping trip to Pisgah, eager to get off the grid before midterms. They hiked 5 miles off the main road and set up camp near a small clearing by a creek. They drank, laughed, and shared ghost stories by the fire. At around 2 a.m., Jake, who had gotten up to relieve himself, froze mid-step when he noticed something across the creek. A man, standing perfectly still on the other side, no tent, no fire, not even a backpack, just a figure, half lit by the moon, not moving. He called out, "Hey, you all right over there?" No response, not a flinch. He brought the others over, but by the time they returned, the figure was gone. They chalked it up to a shadow or paranoia. But the next night, he came back. Marcus, who had insomnia, saw him again around 3 a.m., this time much closer, standing between 2 trees at the edge of their clearing. He stared for nearly 10 minutes, unmoving, before quietly backing into the woods. They packed up in a panic and hiked 5 miles back in the dark, hearts pounding the whole way. 3 days later, a news report emerged. A body had been found about half a mile from their original camp, buried under leaves. The medical examiner estimated he'd been dead for over a week. Authorities speculated that whoever killed him might still be in the area. When Jake saw the victim's face on the news, his blood ran cold. "That wasn't the guy I saw." Story 3. Eyes at the Lake. This occurrence was in Boundary Waters, Minnesota. Anna, 17, and her father, Mark, were on a canoeing trip in the remote wilderness of northern Minnesota in July 2017. Mark was a seasoned outdoorsman, and it had become a summer tradition to paddle out to isolated islands to camp for a few nights, just father and daughter, No phones, no internet, no people. Their third night was clear and windless. Anna lay awake in the tent, listening to the water lap gently against the shore. Around 3 a.m., she sat up, sensing something had changed. That's when she noticed the splashing, soft, rhythmic, like footsteps in shallow water. Peeking out through the mesh of the tent, she saw two glowing dots across the lake, eyes reflecting the moonlight. They were low to the ground at first, like an animal, but then they slowly rose, and a tall figure emerged from the trees. It stepped into the water, standing completely still about waist deep, watching. Anna nudged her father awake, but by the time he opened the flap, the figure was gone. The next night, Mark stayed awake, knife in hand. Around 2:45 a.m., there was a quiet thump against the canoe tied to shore. They both crept out of the tent and scanned the tree line. Nothing. Then they saw it, half concealed behind a birch tree on their island. A man, shirtless, motionless, staring directly at them. He stepped back into the woods and disappeared. At dawn, they paddled furiously back to civilization. After reporting it, a park ranger confirmed several recent reports of a man stalking solo campers in the region, mostly women. The description: tall, pale, always barefoot. They never caught him.